run it. So here it is. So now it is exactly the same application, but notice that there is just a fraction of the code that we had to previously write. But not only that, you also have value object that corresponds to the server side. So whenever we get response back from WebORB, this generated code actually gives you objects, where previously in the other app that I wrote by hand, everything was done by hand, and I didn't have any value objects. So the advantage of using the code generator is huge, because imagine if you have complex service that has a lot of complex types, then you immediately get all of this ActionScript code that is mapped to your server-side code out of the box. In fact, you can get an idea of how much money you actually saved by using the code generator, by using this calculate ROI button. So right here, the estimated savings is like $3.5 grand. And you can get fairly accurate estimates just by playing with these numbers. So let's say if only 80% of the code is applicable, and your developer has, is very productive, cranks out 5,000 lines of code per month, then you know how much money you save by using the generated code. Okay, it looks like there are a few questions. Let me take a look at what we have. Okay, Evie is asking where I can modify code generation templates. Excellent question. So something that I did not mention, but it's certainly true, is that all the code generation provided by WebORB is enabled through XSLT. Okay, so by going into your WebORB installation, so this is what it's going to look like when you install WebORB. Under Web App, WebORB Assets, Code Gen, you will see all the XSLTs provided by WebORB. Okay, so any of these, for instance, for Flex Remoting ActionScript 3, this is the XSLT that drives code generation that I demonstrated to you. You can modify these files, okay? And not only that, but you can also register your own code generators, and they will automatically show up in the service browser right here, okay? So the code generation and the XML document created by WebORB that is fed into your XSLTs is documented, so you can definitely create your own code generators or modify the existing ones. So that's the answer right there. Okay, so let's move on. And so what I showed to you was the service browser and the code generator. Okay, next. Oops. AJAX RPC. So one of the things that I noticed that, and perhaps that may change in the future depending on where Adobe is going, but where things today, the AJAX JavaScript bridge that Adobe provides for BlazeDS does not actually support RPC. You can do publish subscribe messaging, but as far as being able to do invocations from JavaScript against the services deployed in BlazeDS, you cannot do that today. Things are quite different with WebORB. So right here, if you do have a service deployed in WebORB, you can actually generate code, and it's going to give you JavaScript code that will do invocations of any particular class, Spring Bean, and so on. So I prepared an example for you where I do have, let me show you, here it is, AJAX. So what I have is a very, very basic HTML. So right here, just like in our Flex app, I do have, close this, I do have an input text field for getting the city name, and I do have the button that will get the weather from the server, and then when I get the value back, I can just display it in these span objects. And just like with Flex, it's condition committee presentation. So anyway, WebORB provides this JavaScript JavaScript file, WebORB.js, that contains a bunch of functionality for doing the RPC with your Java-based objects. And right here, the very first thing that I do when this application loads is in the body onload. I call the init function, and inside of the init, I create a server-side proxy. Notice that this is the API that WebORB provides. So you specify the URL of your WebORB, and then you specify the actual service that you want to connect with. If this is just a plain Pojo, then you specify the fully qualified class name. If it is a Spring Bean, then you put the Spring Bean name. If it is EJV, you put the JNDI name. And you can actually put this WSDL URL, and then WebORB will proxy all the requests to the actual web service for you. So once I have this proxy, then I can start making calls on this proxy. So when I click the button and invoke get server weather right here, I can use this proxy either to make asynchronous invocations of that server-side method or synchronous. So in this case, if I were to make it asynchronous, then I just create this async parameter. And if it is synchronous, I just invoke this method. Okay. So in this case, get server weather is invoked right here, and I pass in the async object that contains a reference to the function that will be called back once I get the response. Once I have the response, I just go through this result that I get to populate all my fields. Okay. So this is what the net effect of this example is. So localhost 8080 AJAX weather.html. So here it is. And once again, if let's say type in Moscow, get weather, so here it is. Now we got all these results using AJAX that is powered by WebORB. Okay, and this script has been tested in all browsers and actually all mobile devices. It does work on iPad, on iPhone, on Android, so it is really universally available functionality to do the AJAX RPC with WebORB. Okay, all right, let's move on. Next. Silverlight RPC, okay? It's very consistent with, AJAX RPC. The goal, and just to step back a little bit, the goal for WebORB is really to provide an infrastructure that enables you to do the connectivity of anything to anything. So if you do have your Java-based backend, our goal is to expose the backend to any client-side environment that you can imagine out there. That includes Flash, Flex, Silverlight, AJAX, iOS devices, Android, native .NET client, or really anything that is going to be out there. Okay, so and this is our vision, and we are kind of getting there by providing coverage to different client-side environments. So Silverlight, I don't have at this time Windows VM running, but what I can do is show you some examples that WebORB comes with, and then when you download and install WebORB, you can actually experience them firsthand. But I'll show you how to find them. So if you run the console and go to help/resources, under examples, you'll have a bunch of Silverlight examples. So here's a basic RPC invocation where you basically send some primitive values and then this RPC. Now the way we did this, the actual on-the-wire protocol, if you are familiar with Flex and perhaps not familiar with Silverlight and so on, the actual on-the-wire protocol that Silverlight client uses to communicate with WebORB is AMF. So we created a Silverlight library that implements AMF protocol on the wire. So anytime you use Silverlight to communicate with WebORB, it's actually binary protocol that goes over HTTP. And this way, communication between, let's say, Silverlight and WebORB would probably be, but for sure is going to be faster than native communication between Silverlight and, let's say, some SIL-based services, just because the protocol is binary and highly optimized. And it's not just primitive. You can pass in and send complex types. So here's, it's going to be complex type of type person, and then you just, send the object back and something comes back. You can load data. So in this case, this is Java result set, and I'm just doing a query from Silverlight to display this data. Okay, so so that's the item number 5, Silverlight RPC. Let's move on. Okay, data management. So data management is something that is very important because 95% of people out there, they create data-driven applications. So WebORB provides a very powerful system to enable data management. Let me give you a quick overview of how that works. So right here in the same console, if you go to data management, you can connect to really any database out there. So in this case, I'm going to be connecting to MySQL server. So it's, when I say any database, it's any database that WebORB supports, and at this time, it's Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, and Postgres. So let me connect to MySQL database. So this is a reference database that WebORB includes when you download and install it. So what I can do is I can drag this database into this data model and create a model. Food and drinks. So you can specify really any namespace for the server side and for the client side, and in a second I'll tell you why these two exist and why they are important. So the Java is the server-side language. We're going to also create test drive. Click Save. So these are all the tables that our database consists of. You can preview the data in these tables just by clicking these buttons, and it will show you like first 20 records. For any table, there are mappings between column names and the properties that will be generated in the code. And the whole idea with our data management is once again code generation, because we strongly believe that if you let the computers write the code, then you can focus on more important things, especially since the code that is created by this code generator is going to be very close to the code that you would be writing by hand anyway. There is also support for related properties, so if you were to get from one table to another table during your runtime, you can easily do that. You can verify that the model doesn't contain any errors. For any of the mappings, you can click and make changes if you don't like the way any of the properties look. And finally, let's generate this code. So right here, if I switch to my WebORB, we'll see that the code is actually being generated. And now not only it generates, but it actually compiles this code for you, creates all the class files, and now the code generation is complete. Clearly, the value of this generated code here is going to be a lot higher because a lot more code is written. You can validate it by using the same calculate ROI button. So here we just, in a couple of seconds, we just saved almost $28,000. But anyway, we can deploy this code just by using this button. Here's deployed. Now if it was successfully deployed, we can verify that this code is now on the server side. Just by clicking refresh, going into web and flip, and here it is, food.jar. So without writing a single line of code, we have full CRUD implemented on the server side that can deal and work with the tables that I included into my data model. In fact, let's just invoke a method to see if we can actually get data. So just find all. So here it is. We just got all the data using the Java code that was written by WebORB, compiled and deployed. So here it is. All the code is right there. Now go back here. We can download this code. And once again, there is a zip file. In this zip file, there is the client-side code and there is server-side code. Okay, you can import this file into your project the same way that I did in the previous code generation session. And once you do this, it's going to look like this. So you're going to have your SRC folder, and you're going to have your swig that is provided by WebORB. And the test drive, the other two will not show up, but the test drive is going to be there. And test drive is a sample application generated by WebORB to demonstrate to you how to use the generated APIs. So let me quickly run this test drive and show you how that would work. So here it is. This is the sample app created by WebORB that you can use to do full CRUD. So you can get all the records. You can create. There are forms for every single table to create new records. You can click on any of these fields and either save, modify them, save that record, or delete this record. So this is like full CRUD demonstrated to you. Now the source code for all of this is included. So this is just the reference app that demonstrates how to use this APIs. Okay. Now there's a bunch of features in this data management, and that includes support for transactions, support for data paging, sorting, support for customizations if you were to extend this model with your own custom code. So it's a very, very complex system that actually makes things quite easy, and it's fairly easy to use as well. I will not be spending a whole lot of time on data management because we already did a couple of webinars on this, and we will continue doing them in the future. Now, once again, with our data management right now, the targeted environment on the client side where WebORB stands today is Flex. Our vision for data management is just like with RPC. We will be extending it to support all major client sites. So we're working on a version that will support HTML5 jQuery type of output on the client side, where you can use JavaScript to drive your data management and do the queries and do the paging and create records directly from JavaScript. The same is true for iOS devices and Android. So really just expect to get all the support for all major environments from WebORB for data management. Okay, so that's item number 6.